Thank you.
Do you want to answer the question, Laura?
Yeah, so to answer your question, it's a shame because it's a normal part of language development as well, that kids do get a little bit, I wouldn't say confused between the languages, but it takes them a while sometimes to recognize that they are two distinct things. And 5 is still so young in terms of language acquisition and development that I think it is a shame, and it's good to push on beyond that, because sometimes kids do get mixed up, and they might even add, for example, try and add like a French conjugation onto an English word, and as long as you aren't doing that yourself as the model, as the parent, as the model speaker, they will learn that it's not correct. It's even learning a first language. Sometimes kids will say things wrong. So, like for young kids, they might say, I swimmed instead of I swam. That's a really normal part of language development. Sometimes they'll say that and they might even say it correctly, then regress and say it incorrectly again. It's just part of language development. Whether you're learning one language or 2 languages, language learning isn't like a one linear going up, always getting better and better. Sometimes we do well, sometimes the kids will go down a bit and come up, and then the more they explore the language or languages, if they're bilingual, the more that they'll learn, and the more they'll be able to put that into 2 separate things anyway in their head. But no, it's I think it's a shame to have stopped at 5 years old, because it's still so young, and you can still, kids do learn to separate between the 2 of them. Sasha, he's bilingual and he speaks pretty well.
I was going to say, we can like give you our own little idea on it from our experience, and obviously at the academy we specialize in bilingual language programs for young children. But Laura was brought up bilingually, so you've got like her opinion, and it's the real thing. And why don't we ask Sasha, because Sasha was also brought up bilingually, with obviously English as the main language because he was brought up in the UK, and so French for him was the minority language because he's my son and I was the only one to speak French to him. Although it's no coincidence that we say mother tongue. Interestingly enough, the first word he said, he spoke very early. That goes against a lot of theories on the fact that bilingual children speak later in life. Because they have to adapt between both languages. That's not actually true.
That's the truth, yeah.
Sasha started speaking when he was only about 13-14 months. He spoke very well at 18 months old. He hasn't stopped speaking since, a bit like his mother. So Sasha, do you want to tell us how you felt about being brought up bilingual, if you've ever been confused between both languages or anything like that? There is a preconception. A lot of people think children will be confused if they speak 2 languages. Just before Sasha gives us, counters into his own experience, I just want to say I've had many families over the years, people who've moved to the area here in the UK, saying to me, we've been told by the school to stop speaking in our language to the children. They are going to get confused. To me, that's lazy teaching, because a lot of teachers think, right, we don't speak that language, or we feel that the children will take longer to absorb the English language, to understand the grammar and kind of, be at the same level as the other children. I think it's criminal not to give children the gift of 2 languages whenever you can. So Sasha, would you like to tell us about your own experience?
Yeah, sure. Personally, I've never had any sort of confusion between the languages. It's definitely never held me back. If anything, it's only given me advantages. My brain's been opened up to so many more words with the addition of a second language that it only helped me even in English. I definitely agree with what my mum says about lazy teaching. I feel that to blame a child's first language development on the fact they can speak a second is extremely poor. I think it has absolutely zero correlation. And like I said previously, it will only give you an advantage. And again, not to just sound like a broken record, but like my mum said as well, wherever you can to give your children a second language, you absolutely should. It can only bring benefits.
Yeah, my daughter-in-law and my son, they live in San Francisco, so her language will obviously be English first and foremost, but my daughter-in-law is French Swiss and her parents speak French. And so she's very keen on her learning both.
Yeah, definitely. I think
I can tell her if she's pretty familiar with how it kind of works in the household, because her situation is very likely to be similar to mine. I'm passionate about this. I've written bilingual language books for children. So if she wants my take on how to make it work, I'm very happy to pick up the phone and have a chat with her about it. It isn't a walk in the park. No. It's a real challenge when you are the minority language to persist. You need a real discipline. I've always found that it was easier for me to speak to my children in English than it was in French. But when I see them now at the age of 16 and nearly 19, swapping from one language to another, and not just that, being confident anywhere we go. We went to Rome for a weekend and they have a go and they know no Italian. There isn't a restaurant where they didn't say, hello, thank you, can I have in Italian? Just because they have that confidence to try.
Good.
So, Sasha is applying for university and he's been asked, do you speak another language fluently?
There you go.
There's no disadvantage. I think the whole thing is wonderful.
Fabulous. Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. So, ladies, because I think we only have ladies apart from Sasha today. Thank you very much for joining us for day 2 of your French masterclass. So for those of you who were not here yesterday, very, very briefly, my name is Natalie. I'm the owner of the Vici Language Academy, and I am running this session today with Laura, who is our manager in our French office. We have physical premises and academy here in the south of England, and we also have an office in France that Laura runs. Now, yesterday we talked about 2 little tricks, although it's not a word I particularly like, but 2 ways of tricking your brain into learning French. We talked about analyzing your personality in a very colorful way and how that can influence the way that you absorb and retain and reuse the language that you are learning. We also looked at the type of learner that you are. Are you more visual, auditory, or kinesthetic? Today, I want to take this to yet another level and talk to you about another strategy which, combined with what we've covered yesterday, is or should help you even further. So before I start, I just want to go back a little bit on what I spoke about yesterday in terms of my own story and how I fell into language education by accident. Because I didn't have a teaching degree and because I didn't have the necessary knowledge or experience, or I had never learned how the brain works when it comes to a foreign language acquisition, I had to learn it on the job. So I read a lot of books and did a lot of research, but ultimately everything happened practically in the classroom with my students. I felt that I had to really give an awful lot. I have to listen to them. I had to really listen to my gut feeling and go, I think they're enjoying this. I think they're a bit bored here. I witnessed their body language to see if they were enjoying what I was doing or perhaps not so much. And because of that, I started to think about lots of different ways that I could serve my lesson. It was like on a little platter, what can I serve that they are going to enjoy tasting and want more of? And I think that the technique that Laura and I are going to speak to you about today was what I was doing 20 years ago, because that's when I started in 2022. That's when can I just ask everyone to mute themselves, if that's okay, please? Thank you. So I think that's what I was doing without having a label on it, without realizing that it was one particular language teaching strategy. As I also shared with you yesterday, that I ran my own language tutoring agency for 6 years. And then I grew a little bit frustrated by the limitations that teaching in schools or teaching in people's home presented to me. I didn't feel that it was the right environment. School meant that learning a foreign language was all about it being a school subject, rather than it be a serious hobby, a lifestyle, something that's going to give you confidence, something that's going to open doors for you. It was all about the exam or the curriculum, not so much about the student. It wasn't very student-centered. Teaching is people's home, and then the dog's barking, and then the mum's cooking, and then dad comes home and everyone starts to have a chat, and it gets disrupted. And I just thought, this is not really working. So I'm working very hard on finding out what resources I should use for my students. Then I'm kind of analyzing the environment in which they need to be in order to learn best. And all of this little blend, meant that I finally, after many hours and many months and many years, managed to put together a blend of different learning resources, different learning techniques, different environments that worked very well for my students. And I really then started to see tangible results. What we're going to talk to you about today is called blended learning. And it's exactly what it says on the tin. It's a blend of things that you've put together to make your learning very efficient. Now, blended learning in the last few years has become fairly popular. Interestingly enough, it has become popular through the use of technology in language learning. For many, many years and decades, people would say there is no way that you can learn a foreign language without being in a room interacting with a human being. Then apps came along, and computers and computer programs started to be extremely popular. And people went, oh, that's not so bad after all. Could I use this? Could I use that? On the subject of app, which is a question I get asked 1,000,000 times a day, and should I use them and how do they work and are they good? We can do an entire session on this if you like. So blended learning came about because of technology. And if you look at the strict sense of blended learning, or the kind of classic definition, it will say it is a blend or a mix between technology and human interaction, or a classroom setup for your language lessons. I think this is a little bit too simplistic as far as I'm concerned. I think that blended learning, or its definition, or the variety of resources, means that we can push this definition way further. To me, it can be formal lessons or learning, informal learning, structured, unstructured. It can be obviously virtual, it can be guided, it can be self-studies, it can be something that's really structured, something that's completely unstructured. I'll do that actually. I was going to say I can give you a list of all the different blend of learning that I can think of that I think are extremely useful and that I'd love you to think about. And I'll put that in our Facebook group when we finish this class today, an entire list to really make you think about what it could be. When I sent you the email yesterday, I said, can I ask you to think about something that you have recently learned and learned well, and that you've been able to do, create, memorize, whatever it was. Have you thought about this? And how did you actually learn to master whatever it was? Have you learned a brand new recipe? I'm a little bit ashamed to say that, being French and very French at that, I do not know how to cook bœuf bourguignon, which is probably in the top 5 of the lovely French recipe that everyone knows. And I said to a friend the other day, I'm sure my boys would love that. They love meat. They would love bœuf bourguignon. I really ought to learn to do that. I am not particularly good at reading instructions. Instructions don't mean a lot to me. I have to read instructions several times to understand, and I get quite muddled up. That's how my brain works. So my children, in their youth and wisdom, said, "Mom, why don't you watch a YouTube video?" And I was like, ooh, of course. So I watched a YouTube video and suddenly realized that this was great for me. It was very lively. I felt someone was talking to me. I could do it whilst the person was talking to me. Probably was nowhere near as good at that guy on the video, but I was able to do it. So can you think about something that you have learned recently? If it's something about a foreign language, it's a bonus, but I've just used, a recipe. Anything that you could share with us? Ooh, I like that. I've just completed a Tai Chi teacher training course and found initially that it was too formal. I'm loving that you're saying this, because in my list of blends, there is formal and informal as well. It all fell into place when we started doing workshops, more visual stuff and things I could actually do in practice. So Usha, there is a chance that you are a kinesthetic learner. So you need to do in order to learn. Absolutely. I think for me, what's really, really interesting is that if you look at what we've covered yesterday, think about your personality with those colors that we looked at. Think about the type of learner that you are, such as yourself, most probably being a kinesthetic learner, and think about all these different blends of learning a foreign language. If you combine them together, that's the real magic potion. Like, you will be unstoppable. There's nothing that you can't do when it comes to acquiring a new foreign language, because everything is into place for you. It's very personalized. So I talked about, if let's give examples. If you are thinking about your own French studies, so it could be that you have non-scheduled activities. So a podcast. There's a podcast in French that you really like, but this is not something that you schedule to listen to. You might want to listen to it when you're in the car. You might want to listen to it when you're in the supermarket doing your shopping. It's not scheduled, but it is going to immerse you in the language on a very regular basis. It's something that you are going to be really quite familiar with. But then you know that you need to be some schedule and some schedule and structured activity or activities into your language program to really boost your level. So that's where your lessons can happen. When you feel that you need something that is quite, structured, but maybe a little bit more entertaining, you might go to a nice conversation class with a glass of wine. That can be very beneficial, but that's very informal. And by the way, alcohol works wonders for bilingualism. It's not me saying that. it is science. Not too many, but a couple of glasses will really help boost your language skills and your confidence. Inhibitions go out the window. It's all about this. Then you can go, okay, so I've done some unstructured stuff. I've done some formal and informal stuff. I really need to figure out what really is the difference between passé composé and imperfect. This time I need something formal and I need something structured. And this time I need human interaction because I'm not doing it on my own. It's a little bit like having an entire menu of techniques, of resources, of people, of technology that you can use and pick from for you in your quest to be very proficient in French. Does that make sense so far? So Sarah said, I do use Duolingo each day for 4 languages. Wow. To get used to hearing new things, been doing this for 6 months. Sarah, that is super interesting. Would love to hear more about your experience on that. Perhaps we have, I believe is on day 7, we have a huge Q&A, and we are really inviting everyone who's been taking part in this masterclass to share a lot of their experiences, and we can be there to comment, you know, advise, or help you a little bit further. So it would be really interesting to hear this. I'm going to pass on to, I'm going to ask now Laura to converse with you and tell you a little bit more about blended learning. The one little thing I want you to be careful of is, I am the biggest fan there is of blended learning. As I said, I started it 20 years ago. It didn't have a label. I didn't really know what I was doing. When Laura came to the academy for a job interview about 2.5 years ago now, we just ended up, we got on really well, and then we just ended up talking about blended learning, and we found a huge common interest, and we just chatted and talked about loads of ways that we were going to improve our language program. So we are huge fans. It absolutely 100% works. It will make you more motivated. It will really boost your engagement, and it will really, really help you with the language comprehension. Just one little thing. Be a little careful about how it is presented to you. Blended learning has proven to increase the learner's confidence. Why? Because it's personalized. There is so much variety that people never get bored. There's always something for them. There's always something new. There's always something to spark their interest. And really, that's where your language learning should be like, because we learn a foreign language throughout our lives, you know, even our own mother tongue. But it can be a little bit of a mess if it's not done well. Here at the academy, when we put language programs together for our students, be it in groups or one-on-one, we're very careful about the blended learning methods that we use. We never actually decide on the techniques, technologies, you know, resources, or any of the things that we're going to use before we've analyzed your personality that we spoke about yesterday, or the type of learner that you are, the level that you are currently at, or where you want to go. So just a little word of caution on that. Blended learning is amazing, and it absolutely 100% works, but it must be done well. It must be done in a structured way. Otherwise, it can just really be very messy and confusing, and you could end up being fairly overwhelmed because you're using all these different things and you're not really getting to the desired result. I'm going to ask you, Laura, to now take over I'm just reading in the chat that Lynn makes a good point. Is it possible to ask everyone to put all the little messages in the chat public so we can all see them? Because I think they are all extremely interesting. So Sarah said, I would say that you miss out on the accent using the app. I'm very happy to talk to you about apps and how we feel about it or how they should be used, etc. Perhaps we can have a really short Q&A at the end of the session, if that's okay with you. But more than happy to share my thoughts on that. But for now, I'm going to ask Laura to give you her take on it. Number one, as I just said, I know that she's a big fan of blended learning. We also work on Erasmus Plus programs. What Erasmus Plus programs are, they are training programs for teachers throughout Europe. And we have an accreditation from the Council of Europe, and we deliver some of these courses. And Laura worked on an entire course to deliver to teachers on blended learning. So I love talking about it, but she's way more of an expert than I am. So Laura, over to you.
Thank you very much. So just to really touch on what Natalie has said then, from a research standpoint as well, blended learning is so important, and it has really been proven to increase your motivation, your engagement, and your immersion in the language. So one of the reasons that it is such an important part of language learning, notice that we said, a part of it, because you do need the sessions with coaches or with teachers to be able to practice the language as well. But then having a separate part where you are focusing on working on your own and with other resources is really important. So partly because you'll be, in a lot of the blended learning that we offer, you'll get a huge amount of resources that are very authentic. So this means they're resources that aren't made for learners in particular, but that are made for native speakers of the language. And then the scaffolding, we call it, so the structure that is around those articles or those videos is then created for learners. So it's to help you understand native language and to understand language that is very authentic and used by native speakers for native speakers, because that's the goal in learning a language. It's great to be able to understand what my Duolingo owl is saying to me, but people don't speak like that in real life. So really, it's really about the authentic immersion. Secondly, is that everything is contextual when we're in blended learning. If we're looking at different resources that provide us with articles, with magazines, with podcasts to be able to learn, it is contextual. So this is really important. When we are young, we learn our first language, our mother tongue, or multiple languages as we grow up, as we discussed earlier. Everything is in context. We aren't just given flashcards and sentences to translate. It's all given in context, and that is hugely important to help you learn the language. And the final thing is that it is meaningful. That means you are reading, for example, a little article from one of the magazines that we have, or you are watching a video that is in your target language, and you are gaining some kind of meaning, some sense from the resource as well. So it's not just looking at the language that is there, but also bringing something meaningful into your life as well. And that really are three of the central pillars as to how we learn. So just to touch on another thing that Natalie really said was that it can get a bit of a mess if it isn't structured. There are so many different ways that we can incorporate blended learning into language programs. There are so many different resources that are available to you. If you just go ahead with everything and you don't know where to go, you don't know where to start, it is going to get a little bit messy. That is why it really does need to be structured and guided by somebody as well, guided by experts. So I've worked in quite a few different teaching environments internationally. And one of the things that I really, really love about being here at Beachy as well is the extent to which the blended learning that we have, it's integrated into our programs. That means that it isn't just we have online teaching, and then we have the different resources you can have on this side, is that everything is merged together, everything is blended together. So this means that for myself as a coach, when I'm teaching English, when I'm teaching French, I'm very aware of what my students are doing in their blended learning. It's me that's guiding them, that's helping them. Sometimes they'll do extra things that they want to do on their own as well, which is great. It's always good to do extra, but I'm always helping them to understand what they need to work on, what skills they need to work on, what maybe kind of topics they need to work on as well. So it really is, you know, being able to explore the language with all of the different resources that are possible, but while still being guided and helped by somebody who is an expert in language acquisition and helping you learn how to learn the language as well. So this really important thing is that the thing I really want to press on is the importance then of the integration between blended learning, between the resources you have, and between the in-class things that you have. Everything needs to be relevant and combined to help you increase your learning as well. If you spend in class doing something, for example, you're working just on a topic with your coach, and then afterwards, for your blended learning, you are just, for example, looking at grammar all the time, just doing something like that, because you're not quite sure how to do how to sort of structure your own language, it's going to be a lot harder. Whereas if your coach has worked on a specific topic and then they advise you, okay, actually in this video we'll watch today, we heard quite a lot of, for example, the present perfect. So I suggest that you work on building the skills that we've started to touch on in class. Sometimes it can be the other way around as well. In blended learning, we have something called a flipped classroom. So this means that your coach will provide you something to do before the class, and then what you do in the class will build on that as well. So as you can see, there are many different ways that we can integrate this within your learning. So to give you, this is all great, and Natalie and I have said a lot, but just to give you some kind of concrete examples of really what we're talking about, because that's what you're here, that's what you want to know. I want to speak to you about one client I had recently. He's a man who's in his 20s, and he said outright he wasn't very academic at school. He kind of just got by, wasn't excelling in any subjects, and in particular, languages were just over his head. In the French school system, you often have to do 2 languages, English and another language. For him, it was too much. It wasn't, he wasn't very academic, and he really struggled. However, once he got into the working world, he really started to grow professionally and to excel. However, now he's been told that, in order to progress, he does need to learn a little bit more English. He does need to have at least the basic skills. He came to us in a bit of a stress, a panic. He didn't, he knew that, he said, I'm not good at languages. I can't learn English. I've tried at school. I cannot do it. I'm sure there are lots of people that can really feel with that as well, who really relate to that. So I would like to tell you now that he is very capable of holding a conversation in English, and he is really excelling in his work in that place as well. So what we did when he arrived at Vichy, we said, okay, we know how to help you. So we did all of the stuff we looked at yesterday. We really looked at his personality and color. We really looked at his styles of learning. And we really found that he is much more of a yellow. He wants to do things that are fun, and he wants to do things that aren't too structured. He's not a blue. He doesn't want to have everything written down, the rules, which is very much what we learn at school, especially at school. So what we did was we really found the mix of blended learning resources that would be best suited to him and his learning. So we used a specific platform that we have called Lingua Attack, and this is something that has a lot of authentic videos, and then, as I said earlier, that has sort of the scaffolding around it to help him understand these videos. And there is a lot of gamification. So this just means games that are based around the language that you've heard in the video. For him, this was perfect. He felt like he was just honest, because we have it's on your phone as well. You can have it as an app. So he felt like he was just playing games on his phone. He loved it. And actually, he was like, you know what? I'm actually doing 20-25 minutes of language learning a day just from being on my phone. Instead of waiting for the metro or sat on his metro journey, he's there doing his games. It's just such a better way of integrating it into his program. So for him, we really focused on things that were very, very ludic, that were very fun, that were games, and focusing on the fluency rather than focusing on some of the more grammatical rules. Whereas he said he's not very academic, he doesn't enjoy reading long articles either. So we really focused on the resources that we could provide to him that would then help him for that. So, now I'm happy to say that when we speak, when he comes into class now, we begin always in English, and he's really capable of holding a conversation by himself in English. So this is one way that we really take your personality to provide you with the resources that are available and that are best for you. Another one I'd like to talk to you about is someone a little bit different. So this is a lovely lady who is English, learning French like yourselves. She has always enjoyed French. She speaks a little bit of French, and she just really wanted to bring herself to the next level. So she comes to us and she explains to us the issues that she has. She would really like to learn. So she was very, very keen on all of the different things that we had. And especially when we spoke to her about some of our technology related programs. So for example, the applications and the websites that we have, she was very interested, but a little bit nervous to do with the technology. So we spent some time and we were exploring the different options that we have, but in the end, it was the technology part of it was just a little bit too complicated for her. She wasn't that technologically savvy. She was a little bit older, so she hadn't grown up with it. The technology was just adding an extra barrier that for her was posing a little bit of an extra problem. So what we did is we said, it doesn't matter, we have so many resources. We subscribed her to a bilingual magazine, a French-English bilingual magazine, and she gets the magazines delivered to her door weekly or monthly, and then she gets to read them by herself. This lady said that she loves to read already. So what we did was we kind of added into her little schedule. At the end of the day, she sits down, she has a cup of tea or a glass of wine maybe, and she reads an article, she looks at it. They have, again, this scaffolding that I spoke about, so helping you understand in the authentic language, but with lots of different support around it to help you understand the grammar structures, help you understand the vocabulary, help you understand the meaning, because that's what we want. Language doesn't exist without meaning. We need to understand the meaning before anything else. So now, a couple of times a week, she sits down, as I said, with a cup of tea, with a glass of wine, she reads an article or two. And then afterwards, we discuss what she's read as well. Quite often, she'll send me a picture of the article that she's read, and I can prepare classes based around that article for her. Or for example, if there's something that she struggled a little bit more with the meaning, then I can use this and integrate it into my own teaching for her. So this is a really, really excellent way of showing you how blended learning needs to be blended. It needs to have everything together. Everything needs to be connected. So communicating, having that opportunity to communicate with your coach and to tell them what you have been working on, what you've enjoyed working on, is really just an excellent way of really rounding everything out and making it all very, very interconnected. So with this lady as well, so obviously, as you can imagine, her French really improved because she was being exposed to a lot of authentic language. And secondly, having a subscription to a bilingual magazine like that was amazing for her French cultural knowledge. She enjoys her little holidays in France every summer, and she has even said that with the magazine, she's learned a lot more sort of colloquial language, a little bit of slang, some language that is much more reflective of how it is spoken in France, which again isn't necessarily something that we find on these standalone apps like Duolingo, because we don't have the very authentic and the very relevant language that we actually use in day-to-day life. So alongside the language part, she also had this sort of colloquial language, slang, and a lot of contextual knowledge as well. So she really learned a lot about the culture of France. She read articles on different French singers, which then allowed her to go and explore on YouTube and find different French songs that she loved. This added a whole new dimension to something to her learning, just from something that she found in a magazine, which she absolutely loved. So this is really just to show you that there are different things that we can do. And with this lady, we found a solution that we hoped would work for her, and it wasn't working exactly how much as she wanted to, which means that we switched it up and we found something that was better. Blended learning is not an approach where one size fits all. Blended learning is something where we work very closely with you, with your skills that you have, the skills that you wish to acquire, and the interests and the type of learner that you are. And then we create a very structured program that is based around all of those things that we know are going to work for you. That means if you do find technology difficult, we aren't going to waste time trying to put you in front of a technology, a computer that you struggle to use. If you find that reading long articles is just not for you because you don't enjoy doing that in your own time, we're not going to find a subscription to a magazine and make you read it every week. What we do really is very, very personalized and very really centered around you as the learner, and that really is the key how blended learning can work. So I just wanted to show you a little thing that I have. So at Vici, as I said, we have a lot of different resources. So I hope you can see my screen. Yep, excellent. So I just wanted to show you this little thing that I put together. So when you arrive, or when clients arrive at Vici, for example, we like to give them an overview of the resources that are available to them. So what I put together here is not a comprehensive list. It's just a few different things that we might have. For example, we have sort of different language events that we have. We have content on Facebook, homework that we sell on iVici, the bilingual magazine, different types of blended learning approaches that we have. So what I'd like everyone to do is just have a good look at what we have here on the board and see if there's anything on here that immediately speaks to you, that you think, for example, I would be really interested in doing that, whether that is reading a magazine, whether that is attending cultural events that are run, or whether that is using like the LinguaTag, which is a video-based platform. So you can have a look, and maybe we can write in the chat if there is anything that you feel would be, that really sparks your interest, something that you really feel would be a big benefit to you as a learner. And then maybe we can discuss kind of why as well you think this would benefit you, and we can even link this back to what we did yesterday with the learning styles as well. So let me see the chat if anyone has any ideas.
I really like this, Laura, because you've even mentioned the Vici Learning Diary.
Yeah.
It really goes to show how you can find lots and lots of options and variation and lots of little tips to help you with your language studies. What is the Vici Learning Diary? Well, having been teaching French for many years, I realized about how long have we had it? Maybe 4 years, 3-4 years. I realized that we used to give our students a lovely folder, lovely Vici folder, where they could just put all their little resources for their classes, but there was no real structure. So after a while, I used to look at all their notes and think, this is a little bit of a mess. Like, if they have to review their notes later on, how do they actually think, okay, I'm going to revise this, or I'm going to do that? It's all a little bit messy. So I thought, really, we shouldn't give them a folder like that. We should create a notebook, a structured notebook for them, which we called the Learning Diary. As a matter of fact, I should, bear with me.
So I have mine right here as well.
There it is. There it is. There it is. Actually, I've got the desk pad as well, which I always use, but I'll show you in a minute. But so the Learning Diary, what we've done is we've created a notebook with 100 pages, about 100 lessons. So here you can write your notes, here and there for each class. And here you can decide, either right at the end of the class, during the class, or when you review your notes, maybe 24 or 48 hours later. Again, very dependent on how you like to learn. Key expressions, verbs, vocabulary. Think about 2 key expressions, just 2 new verbs, and perhaps 2 new words that you would like to remember, and you'd like that to be part of the French language that you use on a regular basis. Don't try and do any more. A little bit of Noah's Ark, the animals went 2 by 2. That's what we're doing here. It needs to be a digestible chunk of language. So 2 different key expressions, 2 new verbs, 2 new words. It doesn't even have to be 2, but not much more than that. This way, everything is really structured. You are focusing your brain on what you want to try to remember. And when you've had 50, 60 lessons and you go back, it's very easy to revise your notes. It also means that you are asking your brain to focus on the language that is important to you. Within any given language lesson, about 60 to 70% will be relevant to you. There's probably 30 to 40% that you might never use, a context in which you may not be often, even grammar points that at that time may not be so relevant to you. If you can remember about 60 to 70% of your language class, you're a winner, definitely. So we've created those little learning diaries for those reasons. And this is also part of our blended learning method. Another thing that we've got, which we quite like, are these. They're like desktop pads. And, you know, they're a little gadget. We've created them when we had an open day, a language festival at the academy here last year, but they're brilliant. I have one on my desk every day.
Me too.
And, you know, it's like, when will I attend my next language class? What I love most about my language learning journey, if not about languages, what do I need to do today? So you can definitely also use that for a shopping list or anything else. Things to discuss with my language coach. As you develop as a language learner along your language learning journey, you will be thinking about it during the day. The more you immerse yourself in that language, and the more you'll start to question little things or think about things during the day. Here, write down what you want to discuss with your language coach next time you're in class. What verb have I come across today? It could be in a lesson, it could be in a podcast. A new word. So obviously you don't have to do that every day, but having something like that means that the language is present. It is surrounding you all day and every day. That is also part of the blended learning method. Thank you, Laura.
Thank you to Lynn as well, who says she loves these ideas. Thank you.
See, I didn't see that. Brilliant.
Yeah, but no, exactly. And to touch on what Natalie said as well, I don't know if anyone here is a visual learner, as I am, but you'll see that my learning diary is full of colors to help me learn the different. Here I was doing, well, a little bit of grammar, object pronouns in Spanish. So I have all of my little colors, which I really feel is, for me as a visual learner, is what helps me the most. So that's the nice thing about all these resources as well. We can really adapt them to your different learning styles that you have and that we've helped you identify. So I just wanted to have a little look in the chat, some of the things that we have. A lot of people who say they enjoy the paper resources, the magazine seems to be very popular. I agree that while, you know, technology is really a huge part of our everyday lives, sometimes it's nice to go back to paper. Sometimes it's nice to have that physical in your hand and for it to feel like something that you enjoy as well, and for your learning to be reflective of things that you do in your own time as well. If you enjoy reading books, if you enjoy reading magazines, if you enjoy reading the newspaper, then the lovely part about blended learning is that you can then do that in your target language. So a lot of the younger teenagers that we work with as well, especially, a lot of them say to me, I want to be able to watch Netflix in English. That's a good ambition, you know, something that they want to do. So often what we do is we provide them with resources that is working especially on videos and TV shows and films, and then with different learning resources based around that TV show. And that is something that they love, that they're very motivated to do, and something that they really enjoy, because it's essentially their homework is to go and watch something on TV and to watch Netflix. They love that. You know, I don't know, Natalie, you have 2 teenage boys. I'm sure you know what it's like.
Can I interrupt you really quickly? You know, when you talked about the magazine, and that's when I really wanted to emphasize earlier on about this idea of blended learning, not just being about the resources that you use, the books, the technology, the people in the room with you or not. It is also about, you know, is it formal? Is it informal? Is it structured? Is it unstructured? Is it scheduled? Is it unscheduled? Reading a magazine could be used when you are learning French during your class time. I know the lady Laura mentioned earlier who absolutely loved that magazine. So I know that now we are using the magazine as content for her language lessons. But I also know that some students who don't really want to use the magazine in the class, when they use it at home with a glass of wine or a cup of tea, that's when the informal learning takes place. So it's really all these little ingredients that add to the blend. Talking about the blend, Laura, do you have that picture of the blender?
Yes, I do. Here we are.
That's my favorite picture. You know, I told you, for those of you who were here yesterday, I said I love analogy. Today we talked about a diet. and having food allergies and how that can relate to learning a foreign language. Today, we're talking about a bit of a smoothie in the blender to help you to learn foreign languages. You know, this is light-hearted, but it works. It truly is the little magic potion that comes out of this beautiful pig blender.
Yeah, and it's so true that, you know, just as when you're making a smoothie, you can add in as much or as little of what you want. Yesterday, Natalie and I had a meeting. I was actually making a smoothie in our meeting, and this might sound weird. I love banana and spinach smoothies, whereas Natalie went, why would you put spinach in a smoothie? That sounds awful. It's the same for learning. Some people love the magazine, other people think, no, I don't want to do that. I don't want to read that. So that's the beautiful thing about it, that we can pick and we can add as much or as little as of different things as you would like, and find the perfect combination for you as well. No one makes the perfect smoothie the first time round. Sometimes it takes a lot of practice to find what's good for you.
And I also want to say that I'd like to go, and we've got a little bit of time now. We've got 10 minutes left, so we can answer any of your questions. There are some really interesting comments in the chat that I would like to go over.
Yeah.
I'm just checking my notes to make sure I've got the right day. On day 7, which is Sunday, you'll obviously, I mean, you get daily emails from us to tell you what's happening. But on Sunday, we are going to have a bit of a kind of personal linguistic assessment for you. So anyone who is present, if you want to come to the table with your personality, if you're happy to share the kind of learner you are, where you're at in your young journey, where you want to go, so we can say, we think that's what you need. We think you should do this. We're going to have a bit of a customized, language blended menu for you. That's happening on Sunday. Just heads up on that. So Gina said you speak a lot of podcasts on top of your head. Which one do you recommend, please? So Gina, it depends on where you're at the moment. I record my own podcast called French Conversation with Natalie. It's a podcast that I recommend for intermediate learners plus, because the entire conversation is in French. I interview people who are French, so it's spoken by 2 native people. Now, we talk about anything to do with the UK and France, any differences on school education, on the health system, on eating habits. So if you know the UK well, or if you know France well, you're very likely to be quite familiar with the topic. So it shouldn't be too difficult to understand, but it is spoken at real speed. So for people who are complete beginners, I think it will be a little bit too overwhelming, and I'm not sure they'll get the most out of it. But if you private message Sasha, who's our concierge for the day, tell him the level that you're at, and he can send you 2 or 3 podcasts that we think are at your level and of good quality, ours included, if it's relevant to you. Gina said, I'm definitely a visual learner. YouTube is my friend. You see, I think that YouTube is for visual learner, but also kinesthetic learners, because when you watch YouTube, you do it. And the way, doing something in order to learn it is part of the kinesthetic learning preference. YouTube is definitely great. Lynn says, I read news article in French every day. I set my news feed up to send me French articles and English articles. That's very good.
Excellent.
For those of you who go on your laptop early in the morning, something that's really good, if you like to read the news, if you don't, again, park it. As Laura said, it's all about you and what you like. But if you like to read the news when you arrive at work in the morning, or if you work on your computer, having, for example, the BBC and Le Monde online, or another online newspaper, is very useful, because let's face it, when they talk about Ukraine, they will talk about it on both papers. Okay, they talk about the French elections, presidential elections. They are not going to talk about it as much on the BBC, but there will be articles about it. So actually looking at the way the news are portrayed in English and then in French can actually be quite helpful. But I would say you need to start to be fairly advanced about this. And I love what Lynn says, my work life is so structured that my personal life needs to be unstructured. Do you know what, Lynn? Not only that is true, but I am a firm believer that this is how you will best learn or improve your French, because I know you speak it very well already. When we teach French, we do what we call high activity, low activity. High activity is when the student is full of energy, raring to go, we've just started the lesson, we're pumped up with caffeine, we're super enthusiastic, we're going for it. We then use high activities, which means that the learner is ready to take on quite a lot of new knowledge. Then we use low activity. That's when we know that, you know, no one can sustain like a high alert level of attention for a very long time. So then we know we have to use what we call low activities, just as interesting. It could be completely relevant to what we've just spoken about, but it's not something that is going to demand a lot of brain energy. Structured and unstructured activities are exactly the same. Do not think that listening to a podcast is irrelevant because you can only learn when you're in the classroom with a teacher. By all means, we are talking about mastering French, a foreign language. You need human interactions. There are no two ways about it. We might have a little bit of time to talk about apps. Even clever genius people who invent apps will tell you that you'll never be fluent by just using the app. We're talking about a method, a way to communicate, a method of communication. You need human interaction, but please don't underestimate all the unstructured activities that you can use every single day. That's actually, we're going a little bit further in that, I believe, on day 5, when we talk about living French, and we're giving you loads of little tips on how to adopt lots of, you know, kind of little tricks, if you like, every day to help you with the language absorption. So you gave the recipe, very good. You should have given it in French.
I know, I should have done. I thought about that after.
Gina said, I live in the UK, but I'm German. So Gina, you are looking to be trilingual then. Great, which really should help, because even though English and German have the same roots, so different to French, it's all about the language mechanics. We talked about that yesterday, didn't we, in our introduction? Understanding language mechanics is extremely important if you're looking to be proficient. Can I just ask, I'm just checking the time, we've got 2 minutes left. Any questions? Does this make sense? Everything that we've covered, is there anything in particular you'd like to ask? Oh, Gina is super multilingual. She's putting us, at least me, up to complete shame. That's quite amazing. Well done. Well, I hope you'll be there on day 7, because on day 7, I would really, really love everyone to come along so we can have really open conversation about our experience of the language, of experiencing the language, of learning the language. This will be really rich. Yeah, absolutely, human interaction. So with the last 2 minutes we've got, I'll just have a quick word about apps, because this is the question that I get asked every single day. A lot of people think that language professionals such as Laura and I are going to say bad things about apps. Absolutely not. I think that apps have a place in your language learning acquisition. I think they are an amazing tool, again, to add to the blend. They are an amazing tool to switch your brain into French. If you are spending 20 minutes on the bus or in the train or 2 hours on the plane, using an app is brilliant. You're telling your brain that now is the time to do a little bit of French. It's really good to see vocabulary written it's the same word coming back again, because apps are designed for you to acquire basic language, like all the words that we generally use on a regular basis all the time. Where apps can't help, and I think that a few of you have mentioned it, is accents. Okay, no one's talking to you, no one's telling you whether you should say it like this or like that. You can't ask questions. There is no human interaction. And language, again, is a mode of communication. So when you are interacting with someone, there is way more to be considered than just the spoken words. You know, there's the intonation, there's the body language, there's whether one person is speaking or several people are interacting around you. And so an app cannot help you with this. However, I do believe that if you enjoy grabbing your phone and do some exercises, again, some people love it, some people hate it. I really do believe that an app can truly help you along your language learning journey. It has a place, it just cannot do it all. So I think Laura's gone because she was teaching. It's 2 p.m. Where she lives, and she was teaching. Has this session been useful? Yeah, excellent. Remember that I'll send you a bit of a recap email. You can reach me by email, by WhatsApp, on Facebook. We will play the recording in the Facebook group again tonight. And I very much look forward to seeing you tomorrow, same place, same time.
Thank you, Natalie. Really enjoyed that.
Merci beaucoup. Au revoir. À bientôt. Merci.